Hey friends, today in Learning Out Loud, we are in installment 4 of 5, talking about stories and storytelling. And so maybe you find yourself in a position where you understand or accept that storytelling is an effective way to communicate, but you're not sure where to find good stories or how to come up with them or create them out of thin air, for example. Well, I found myself in a similar state when I had read maybe a couple of books by Stephen Denning on storytelling and in business context. And I was very convinced that I should be telling more stories and doing them in a strategic way, but I just wasn't too sure how to create a list of stories that I could just repurpose and use in the right moments and in the right ways. So going back to the book we've been talking a little bit about this week, Lead with a Story, the author talks about a few ways that you can start to collect stories. And I'm going to home in on one very specific category that he talks about, which is stories from your past. So he has a little list of ways you can kind of jog your memory and identify some good stories. So I wanted to share a few of those with you today. So here's the first one that he talks about. Think of the people you admire most. What did you learn from them that made you admire them so much? That's one way to maybe find a good story that you can capture. Here's another example. What are the times in your life where you felt the most inspired? Here's another. When did you have the greatest sense of belonging and team spirit? Here's a good one. What's the toughest problem that you've ever solved? Or here's another one. What's the best working relationship you've ever had? Now he has twice as many listed, but that's just a couple. Those are just a couple of questions to prompt some stories from your past, and then as you start to remember these different experiences, you can think through that CAR, that CAR acronym, where you can say, okay, if I'm going to form a story out of this, I'll start by identifying the context, then I'll describe the action, and then finally I'll land on a result, which is kind of the right lesson that I'm drawing out of this story. Now, this book itself has dozens of stories as examples. So he's giving some examples right there about your past. Well, he also talks about the fact that buying a book like this gives you stories because he's teaching through stories and through sharing stories. So I have personally found it really valuable to also find stories through books that I've purchased over the years. And Paul Smith's books are a good start. Stephen Denning, I mentioned, he's got some really good books about storytelling. And then you can also just find books that are just collections of stories. So just look around through your local bookshop or Amazon or something like that, and you can find some good resources that will just be a database of stories that you can draw from. So the question to chew on for today is, what from my past can I capture as a story that I can share later? Or is there maybe a book out there that I can just purchase as a good starting point or a launch pad of a collection of stories that I can start to reference and use? So that's it for today. Hope you're having a great week. We'll see you next time.